are emotionally triggered by something, I don't disagree with you that it is something within you. Because obviously if I say, hey, you big spank hairy dude, no part of you is going to be triggered by that because there's no part of you that relates to being a spank
myself
as a spank hairy dude. Exactly.
If you told me, hey, you're a smelly woman, and I'd be like, yeah, maybe sometimes.
Right.
And I would feel cynical.
And the closer it gets to your sphere of awareness, the more. But I would say that it is not true that that's within you. It doesn't have to be. It is possible. It's either in you and something that has happened to you, or something you struggle with personally, or something you've done to someone else, or something you watch to be done to someone else. So, for example, in my mind, the reason why I'm very triggered by assholes is not because I was an asshole, but because my family is a very conscientious family. And so to me, I have watched my family do very nice things for people and be, let's say, taken advantage of, or be the antidote to assholes. So that's an important value for me. And so I've learned to not love people who are not conscientious of how they hijack spaces. For example, you told a story about a while ago about, being an airplane, right? And trying to catch your ticket, and like being the person, everyone on this person's case. To me, I don't understand why individuals feel in situations that they don't really have much control over, that they need to be rude to individuals. And I also would say, if you do have control over the situation, you're much likely to get your way by being kind. Like, so to me, kindness is always the best religion. And so, yes, I'm triggered by people who feel as if for some reason they have the right to be rude because they've been inconvenienced in some way. That triggers me because I go, it's just as easy to be kind, and you're actually more likely to get your way, and you're more likely when you're kind to somebody to make them be kind to the next person. So what is it about individuals that, of course, it's learned behavior? That's probably where you're going to go with this. But to me, I do go, what is it about us that thinks that's okay, really?
Well, yeah, it's learned behavior. And I'm going to take it back to your family being mindful about not being an asshole and showing you that. I would probably make the argument, or if your mom and dad were sitting here, I would drill into, okay, this is a big thing that you're striving for in your life and being. Where did this come from? What was your mom or your dad or your father's mom or dad? Were they assholes? And did you decide when you started this family, we're not going to be this way? Because that's what we do as humans. We see something in our previous generation and our parents that we definitely choose. We are not going to carry this forward. It ends with us. Mm-hmm. And I would bet that there is somewhere in the lineage of your family that this was a problem and it became. A lot of effort was dedicated to changing it.
Yes, 100%. And I love this topic because to me, this is the next level of human work. The idea is that, yes, of course, these patterns occur. We all have our hurts and our wounds and our stuff. My mother's mother was incredibly horrible to my mom.
Yeah.
And so my mom, and if you look at, my mom had 6 siblings. She was the second oldest. Older sister, then my mother, and then the rest of the kids. And my mother, in response, now think about, this is the base level response to being hurt, is to then grow up and hurt other people.
Yeah.
The culture level response to being hurt is to grow up and overly identify with that hurt. Oh, woe is me, blaming and complaining. I was a victim of my life, right? By the way, to heal, there is a time and a place. We must be victims for a time. However, being stuck in victim over years and decades is a choice. Now, my mom made the choice to become the hurt person who helped people. That, to me, is the next level of human way and ethos.
Yeah.
And I would also say, to your point, I honestly believe, and I would love to hear your thought on this, you and I have talked a lot about this, just about me and you as friends and being involved with each other, that to me, this is the thing that is the most attractive thing to me when someone goes, I want to make the world a better place with my energy. I want to bring positive vibes at a higher level frequency to my interactions with people. And yes, I did get this from my mom, to your point, and my mom also did break a pattern with her mother.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and I will say one more thing about this, because the one thing that the pattern that I broke with my mother is my mother is incredibly kind, but she did not have boundaries. And so I had to fix that. So we went from cruelty to kindness, to me realizing that kindness without boundaries is foolishness, to going, okay, now I am very kind with boundaries and breaking that pattern. And then the next, individuals, if I had kids or the people who I impact, hopefully will add their little piece onto that as well. And so, yes, I think this is something that if we are aware of it, it's in our sphere of awareness and it triggers us, it's our work. It stops with us. It ends with us.
Yeah. So to think about I have a similar storyline with what I'm working through from a generational standpoint. And to bring it back to the airport example that our friend Jade gave to us the other night at dinner, where my flight was canceled. I didn't want to get stuck in South Korea overnight. I had to get back to 108 sun salutations and to get my son. And so they had announced that there were no more flights. Everything was full. I didn't accept that. I went onto my app. I bought another ticket with a partner airline. I had 45 minutes to completely check in with the new airline, board a new plane, find it, so on and so forth. And he was talking about how uncomfortable he felt when we were in the secondary check-in counter. And it was already an intense environment, how these things can be when shit's going awry in the airport with people. And there was someone in front of us who was very nasty to the person behind the counter and just stressed out people. And I was definitely stressed the fuck out. And we were standing in line and, I'm just like twitching and looking at the clock. Like, oh God, is it going to work? I don't know. Are we going to... this is what's energetically going on in my own experience. And I'm like maybe tapping my foot and looking at my watch and just like an energetic explosion happening. Now, I didn't say anything to the lady. I wasn't rude, but you could feel that I was tense and stressed out and worried about whether or not I was going to be able to get on this plane. And, my language with her probably wasn't very fluffy, like, hi, how are you? Because I wasn't relaxed. It was just very straight and to the point, and my energy was explosive. And to look at what my father, say, would have done in that scenario, he would have been aggro and demanding and perceived as rude and entitled maybe in that scenario. And so my work, while I have witnessed that type of behavior, someone who's sassy and demanding with any type of service staff, I've witnessed that my whole upbringing. And so I know that that's not what I want to do or be. And I've continually practiced in my life testing out kindness and honesty and authenticity with people. And that's proved to be really helpful and beneficial while also experiencing the same, say, nervous system response that I'm predisposed to have based off of my family genetics. So that is, in my life, one of the generational shadow pieces that I'm trying to break. And also, I'd be curious to look at boomers versus Gen X and millennials. And I think there's probably some cultural patterning there as far as what we are breaking through generation by generation from a shadow side of things. But that's maybe another topic.
Yeah. And here's what I would say to that. I love this thought because I think that this is exactly why people sometimes run away from kindness. Because to me, I have a couple thoughts here. Number one, it's very easy. It's just as easy to be kind as it is to be aggro, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. We cannot predict the anxiety and intensity of the stress that happens. Mm-hmm. And to me, here would be several different ways that you could deal with this based on someone's predisposition. So let's say if I'm there with you, and I think you know me, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to say something like this. Listen, I know you're probably getting this from everybody. we're really stressed, could really use your help. Can you get us on this plane? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to relate. I'm going to lead with compassion, and then I'm either going to get my way or not. Now, in this case, you did get your way, but I also think here's another very another easy way to do this. So you're stressed, you're short, you're like, let's go, tap tap, come on, hurry up. But when it's done, right? This is the kind of stuff I've seen my mom do. When it's all said and done, it's very easy to look at the person and say, I know I was so tough. You're so wonderful. Thank you. Just that little bit. So to me, I think what people do is that they forget that there's lots of different interactions. I'll tell you one of the things I learned from my mom that is absolutely brilliant. And you've seen me I think you've seen me do this a few times, but my mom, when she's in the car, she's kind of a little bit of a space cadet. So she's just like pulling out in front of people and like, la, la, la. And people will frequently beat the horn at her and like pull up next to her. And I've been in the car with her where someone pulled up next to her and was yelling. My mom just looked over and goes, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you, honey. I'm so sorry. Thank you for looking out for me. Yeah. Right? Thank you for looking out for me. This guy who was irate, all of a sudden, in an instant, goes, glad you're okay. Yeah. And drives off. And I'm just like, Mom, you are an absolute genius. Now, she doesn't know that she's doing this, but think about the response when someone's yelling and screaming at you, instead of giving them the finger, go, so sorry. Like, this is so easy for us to do. And here's why I think it's powerful. It changes what they're expecting is the finger. What they're expecting is to that energy. You can surprise and delight people by just remembering that I can show up here with kindness. It would have been so easy for you to just at the end of that be like, by the way, I know I was nuts. You're wonderful. Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because right before that counter experience at the airport, I was trying to ask the questions about where I checked in and whatnot with another individual behind the counter. And she was stressed out. Her boss was right there. Her manager was there and she was under pressure. And I was trying to ask her questions like, hey, I'm on this airline and I need to move to this airline. Where do I go? Is that something that's even possible? And she just looked at me and she just said, what do you want? Can you just ask me the question of what it is you're trying to figure out? And I just froze at her and I thought, oh, okay. Because I'm also stressed, but I was being very nice. And I just said, are you frustrated with me right now? Did I do something? And she said, no, I just have my job to do and I'm trying to get it done and I'm in a hurry and I'm under pressure. And I'm like, okay. And I tried to give her the short version of the question that I was looking for. She told me, check in counter number here, go to this gate, da 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 da. But I could see a shift in her recognizing, oh shit, And also it's different culture too, which is always interesting and fun, how these things are handled. But it was. But I love that because think about when you said that, right? You could have easily come back and it would have been the two things are just as easy. Right, so why not choose the bet? You could have easily been like, "Hey, this is your job. Calm down. I need something done for me now." Yeah. But instead, you were like, "Are you okay?" That's basically what you said. Are you okay? Are you frustrated me? And it stops her and makes her think. And I guarantee you, what's really beautiful about that is we don't realize that by you doing that, I guarantee she was calmer with the next person. And by the way, I think the reason people don't do this because they see it as weakness and they see it as like, someone's going to take advantage of me, but you can be kind with boundaries. In fact, I think the kindest way to be is with boundaries. So you could say to someone, hey, you do not get to talk to me like that. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. Can you help me figure this out? That's a kind response. It's also boundary heavy. Like, hey, you don't get to treat me this way. And think about it like this, right? I do this sometimes with you, right? Like, let's say you're in a mood. Now, someone comes up and starts joking with you, or even if I like grab you and I start hugging you and you're in this place, now you still might be mad, it still may be annoying, but there is something about that makes you go, okay, like there's something about that. Now we have that power. In that place, we have that power. Why would we use that power? Why would we use the other thing. So something negative happens and we go, fine, I'm going to throw fuel on a negative flame. When we easily could go, here's this thing, I can bring coolness and water to this fire. I don't understand why we've learned to be different. The only thing I can think of is that we've been cultured into this.
Yeah.
We've learned it from the response of our family.
Yeah. Well, it's very much we do what we were exposed to growing up. And I'm getting this vision of another experience and another response for me, which would be the counter to that experience, which was the TSA line. You know, I feel like there's so many videos and things going around. And I actually was in the first class line that wasn't flying first class, but long story anyway, in the Atlanta airport. And it was probably the meanest TSA experience I had ever had. And the guy was just not having a good day. And I just looked at him and he just kept sending me around and around in the circle because I didn't put my laptop in the bin right or whatever. And I just cried. I just stood there and looked at him. It was just broken down and so overwhelmed by how intense the emotion was. And I was just standing there crying. And I just remember after the fact having the imprint of what that mean energy felt like was, you know, it's one of those life-changing moments where I could fully witness it's not about me. I'm trying my best. There's nothing wrong that I'm doing here. I'm not taking it well, I was taking it personal, but after the fact, looking back on it, I just felt like, holy shit, this level of showing up is detrimental and hurtful to other people. And it propels this narrative that we have to just fight and go to war, and that's not the answer.
I love that whole thought because I think that's exactly right. Now imagine the other experience, right? Like I'll tell you.
Aggro.
Yeah. If you went aggro, or
I wouldn't make my flight. I would be, you know, strip searched in the corner. They would make it as difficult as possible.
And not only that, I think that by being in that and handling that storm, everyone around you, right, would be, this is not the way to behave. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories of my life. It's a very simple story, and it's one of my favorite examples of this. I was in Santa Monica at a Whole Foods. A couple people must not have showed up for work. It was, 5 p.m. The place is packed, and I'm third in line. So there's a guy around my age in front of me. There's me. There's about 6 people behind us. We've been waiting for a while, and this elderly woman, probably in her 80s, comes up to the cash register, and she's confused. And so the young guy, this young kid, probably 21, 22, with dreadlocks and, looked like, kind of a roughneck. He's basically taking and scanning her items, and she's like, no, what is that? It's like an orange. She's like, that's not mine. I didn't get. So she's confused. And the guy in front of me is getting irate.
Yeah.
And he turns around and says to me, can you believe this shit? And by that time, I had noticed the cash register guy.
Yeah.
And he was, every item, he started to play with him and started juggling her oranges and like, this is so good. Have you ever had these? These are the best oranges. Oh my God, I love this. Would you like to buy this? And he's playing this game with her. And all of a sudden, I'm focused on him. And all of a sudden, this line that was angry and agitated goes from amusement to laughter to happiness.
Yeah.
Everyone's laughing just because of the response of this guy. So I came up and he goes, I'm really sorry about the wait. And I was like, dude, that is the most amazing thing I have ever seen. He's like, what do you mean? I said, you turned that whole situation into this amazing thing. He goes, you want to know what, man? I remember my grandmother when she was going through dementia. And he goes, I just felt for her. And to me, I go, we have the ability. Now, here's what's beautiful about this, by the way. I have written about this in books. I have told this story countless times in retreats. I don't know who this kid is. I've never met him again. But he inspired me to be better. And also, I've told this story millions of times, and that is real purpose. So people think, oh, your purpose is, writing a book or doing this. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And part of me just goes, We humans have that power in every single interaction. Why don't we use it?
Well, it's like the pay it forward energy. Each day there are so many little things like that you can do, even if it's just one thing a day, that transforms someone else's perspective, experience, and then most likely is going to influence them to do the same thing. And it just spreads like wildfire. And that's the beautiful thing.
And I do think it's just a choice. I think we start going through life and we just choose that I'm not going to be like my mother's mother. Like maybe you'll say, hey, you loved your father. Like he's a great guy. But it's like perhaps you don't want to be that way in public.
Well, I think that's just like, that's the other side. It's part of maturity in that, we've been on the other side of the opposite energy, the negative, the asshole, enough to finally get to a place where we go, yeah, no, I don't want to contribute to that anymore. I don't want to add to that energy. I want to be the opposite, and I want to help transform the collective in this way. I know we're kind of going off topic a little bit from where we started.
Yes, you know what I want to ask you?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, like, because it is a little different, but it's actually a really interesting thing. What do you think? What do you think makes people this way? Like, what do you think makes people
Assholes?
be assholes? Be assholes. Like, what do you think it's all their
behavior? It's something as simple as like I can remember dining at a restaurant with my dad and my mother even now. Sorry, Mom. To this point, and it wasn't necessarily that they were assholes. It's just maybe the tone was a little demanding, and it's probably why I have my own trigger around like how much fluff to add to a dialogue, whether it's texting, especially with phone calls. But even as a young, say, teenager, maybe is when it happened. If my parents kind of said something that was like, me and my brother would kind of like make eye contact and be apologetic for the way our parents were acting. And I'm sure, I am 100% sure that it's just what they witnessed. It was they weren't taught any other way. You would learn through experience. I really think that that's what it is.
Yeah, I guess I would say it's a couple things maybe, and see what your thought is on this. Yes, I think we well, it's interesting, even as teenagers, right? You and your brother knew that there was something off about that it wasn't quite okay to treat people who were waiting on you that way.
Well, so, we're kind of on the other side, not to group my mother, say my dad. We were on the other side of him too. Like sometimes he was an asshole. Mm. And so we early on learned what it was like to be on the other side of that. And that started planting the seed to transform. Maybe I don't want to be this way. Maybe I don't want to carry these things forward in my life and how I adult or how I raise children.
Yeah, I love that idea because I think that's the thing, right? It's like, okay, at some point you go, all right, I'm acting like my father. I don't want to be this way. And it doesn't take away the wonderful aspects of our caretakers too.
Yeah.
It just is essentially to go, like you said, it stops with me. It ends here.
So there's some sort of trigger there that I developed of something that I witnessed in my upbringing that I definitely don't want to be. And that trigger continues as sort of the shadow side throughout the rest of my experience. Just like the other day, we were setting up these cameras and I'm like, had 2 cups of coffee, maybe 3, and, we have short timeline. We have an hour and 40 minutes of trying to get things done, and I'm just, like, calling out, like, no, don't put that here, and, oh, let's do this, and let's make sure everything looks right. And then after the fact, I'm like, oh, shit, was I an asshole? And that's the trigger, because I'm like, okay, should I have added more fluff in how I communicated with him? Was I too direct and to the point? Was that perceived as being, harsh or demanding or too authoritative? And it's a dance, right?
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing about this. I actually, to me, with good friends, you kind of have permission to be an asshole because you're a good friend. So to me, I'm like, when you having a bad day or you're stressed out with me,
so I wasn't an asshole.
You're in a safe place. No, I don't think you were, but I will tell you what I think. And here's what I think. Here's how I think people should judge whether they're an asshole or not. If they are hijacking the energetic space So it would kind of be like this. Let's say you're in a hurry with these things, but you yourself are then holding up things or not moving fast enough, but then that same behavior is not okay for someone else. So you hold other people to a different standard than you hold yourself. That's being an asshole. I also think an asshole hijacks the emotional space of the room simply because they are inconvenienced or stressed. I oftentimes think to myself, we're all here stressed. Everyone's here doing the same thing. What is it about you that thinks it's okay that you're stressed and you're inconvenienced? I'm thinking of like being on an airplane or a bus or standing in line. What is it about you and your stress and inconvenience that makes you feel that you're so much better than everyone else that they should be, bowing to you or, taking you into more consideration than everyone else? So to me, I think a true asshole just thinks I'm entitled to something different than everyone else.
Well, what comes up for me when you say that is I think it goes back to wounding, and what we know about emotions is that anger is typically just the surface level thing, and there's a much deeper story and most likely inner child wound that you could draw it back to, which says, I've been hurt, I've been beaten, I've been abused, whatever it is, I won't be taken advantage of anymore. I'm going to stand up and I'm always going to fight this battle because nobody fought this battle for me before. But it goes back to a core wound. And, typically the first emotion that people can access is anger or frustration. And some people never learn how to get past that and really identify what the feeling is below the surface. So
I love that because I don't know who said this quote. Matter of fact, maybe it's my quote. I don't know, but it's one of my favorite things to say. If you see life as a war, you'll find battles everywhere. Yeah. And so I do think that's exactly right. I think there's something that happens where there's this internal wound, and to me, I think there's three paths from that. Right? You're hurt. You and I talked about this a lot. All humans suffer. Yeah. So I go, you can choose to be the villain, which is the person who got hurt, who then wants to hurt other people. Right. You can be the victim, which is the person who got hurt, who then overly identifies with that hurt. Woe is me. You have to, blame, complain, whimper, whine. And then there's what I would call the victor, who's the hurt person who helps people. And to me, I do think these are choice points. So to me, the asshole is the villain. Yeah. And the asshole is the victim, because what they're essentially saying is that my hurt justifies me showing up in these ways that hijack spaces and do not consider other people because I'm having a difficult day. And to me, I don't know a person, even the asshole, who would not be appreciative of the person, the victor, who turns the thing around and says, you can have my place in line. Or, you know what? I'll buy the coffee. No big deal. I'll take it on the chin. I honestly think that it used to be heroic to take it on the chin for other people. And all of a sudden, it's not. All of a sudden, taking it on the chin, is not a good thing. And I still believe that I want to take it on the chin for humanity. I don't mind being inconvenienced if I can help somebody. And it's not completely selfless, by the way. I feel proud of myself. Yeah. I can bring an energetic into a room and change the way people go through their day.
I would make the argument that this is the primary lesson and the greatest access point for human beings in our journey, is that we take these things that are wounds and transform them into something that heals you and heals other people. We turn our darkness into our light, which then inherently helps other people take their darkness and turn it into light.
And it goes back to kind of another podcast we did where we were talking like this idea of like your suffering, right? Telling your authentic story of struggle is the thing that can free you. Why would you want to take somebody who's hurting and then hurt them further? Now, I do think we need to talk about this, though. This is perhaps what someone like your father teaches us that is good. We do have to admit, and anyone listening to this conversation, you have to admit there are times.
There are boundaries.
There are times when you have to be like, you don't get to treat me that way.
I take care of me. Yeah, and this is where we, I guess, go into a codependent conversation of what's my responsibility, or what am I responsible for within my own self and my experience, and what am I responsible for outside of myself. And those can be difficult to differentiate between us, especially in relationships and partnerships. But I think one, always taking responsibility for yourself and your actions, and that includes in these type of interactions and in these social situations where you go, I'm ultimately the one who's going to pay the price for being an asshole right now, and being able to witness that and recognizing that you're not helping that person, you're actually hurting yourself, and maybe hurting the other people around yourself. So we have to have some boundaries.
I love that. I do think I'm trying to unpack what you just said there a little bit, but I do actually agree completely that when you are the asshole, you really are hurting yourself. There's no part of that attitude and way of being that is useful for you. But I think you think it is because I think you think I'm defending myself. It's because your belief system, I think a lot of times, assholes believe everyone's out to get them. And the turnaround is that, okay, who cares? I'm going to be the person who's always there to help. And there's pride in that, mattering and making a difference. That is the most courageous thing that you could be in the world. The person who goes, I don't care. I am going to show up and be the good.
Well, it goes to the other side, which says, I'm responsible for taking care of myself. So say in the airport or the grocery store line scenario, if something happens and I'm late or things changes, all I can do is let go of what's outside of me, because I have no control over that. And all I could do is own what I'm responsible for, what I'm doing, what my actions are, what my words are, how I process my emotions. And that's my domain. That's my responsibility. I can't take on a responsibility for the fact that this person that maybe say I'm exposed to as being an asshole, that's theirs. That's not mine.
Yeah.
And there's boundaries around that.
Yeah, all I can think about is that if you feel you've been bullied, you kind of like the idea of bullying the bully. The problem is that most of those people who are in front of you are not the bullies. They're not the people who hurt you, right? And not to mention the fact that that bully who hurt you way back when that you're still reacting to is still winning. The only way to square that energy is to move beyond it.
You're a victim in the moment, but it's your responsibility to not remain a victim for the rest of your life in that experience of bullying, because you ultimately are the one hurting yourself, remaining a victim of that thing.
Yeah. I'm curious because I know for you, like being your friend, I know for you that competence is really important, that people who are incompetent definitely can grate on your nerves. I've picked that up about you, right? Or people who don't respect other people's time.
Yeah.
Or if things are, let's say, I don't know how you are with eating out and stuff. I've never seen you be cruel to anyone eating out. We go out to eat quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I do know there's things that could trigger you in your domains of expertise, like in building and, people being incompetent or not on time. But so I'm wondering how you typically
timeliness is important to me. I think that it's all about boundaries. Like I can have compassion and grace and empathy for it because it happens to me. It happens to all of us. Time issues, child is sick, there's road work, whatever. But the difference is when there's a pattern. When there's a pattern with someone that I'm engaging with, where there's always an excuse and there's always a reason for being late, I am not going to become a victim of that. I'm going to uphold my own boundaries and draw a line when this is not, they're showing me a pattern, I guess.
Yes, I love that. And that's the part that I wanted to get to, because I do think you
don't make a habit of it.
Yeah, like I call it being the antidote to asshole. It doesn't mean I'm just kind no matter what. It means I am vetting.
It's about respect.
100%.
Be considerate of my time, and I'm going to be considerate of your time. We have to consider other people, especially when it's a scheduled thing. Like, we all have a lot going on. We're managing a lot, and we always need to be taking other people's experiences and life circumstances and what they're juggling and managing into consideration. And that goes both ways in a timeliness conversation.
100%, especially when we talk about close relationships like romantic partnerships, family, and everything else. I have this thing, and I still think you can be kind now. And I know you laugh at me with
I
this.
don't have to be an asshole, but like, hey, we're not doing this anymore.
Well, I think you can actually be kind in what people would be like. You laugh at me for this. A lot of my friends laugh at me for this, but I have this thing. It's like, I love you, but fuck you.
Yeah.
Right? It's basically this.
Sandwich.
Yeah, if you do that, it's like, I love you, fuck you, I love you, right? But the idea is that you do not get to treat me that way. It's very firm, and it's like, hey, fuck you. And guess what? Also, I love you. I'll talk to you later. Or even if it's someone you're not close to, which I do this a lot as well. You know, you will see this in me where I'm just like, hey, not okay. You're fine. I know you're just doing the best job you can, but this is not okay. I'm not dealing with
it. With how I operate and my frequency, and I choose not to have this in my life.
Yes.
And I have all the right and autonomy. I'm not going to be a victim of how you show up.
100%. And I think I've even done this on occasion with, surprising some of my friends because I'm rarely this way, but even eating out or something like that, I will say, let's say the it's horrible when I'm with you. Normally I don't do it for myself because I don't care that much, but let's say I'm dining with you and your meal's just horrible and you're not happy with it. I might say, hey, can you take this back for Kelly? Now let's say that they're creating a whole thing about it. I might say to that server, look, I know this isn't your fault. I'm sure it's something going on in the kitchen, or I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's the kindness part. Get it, but then I just go, but this is not okay. So,
yeah.
So to me, I do think that people avoid this, or they're hesitant to be the antidote to asshole because they don't know how to be firm and in their boundaries while saying it's okay. So we're close friends, hey, fuck you. Look, I love you. But fuck you. You don't get to treat me that way right now. And I also think we can do the same thing with service people where we can do both. And I don't think people know how to do this.
There's a video that's going around on social media and it has been probably for a couple of years. This gentleman, we can tag his name. I don't know it off the top of my head. But he says this really beautiful thing where he says, I love you. You're beautiful. I don't like what you do. I release you, and I love you. You're beautiful. There's something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but that's always really stood out to me. And, I found myself in that scenario when ending relationships of various kinds in my life, which you've coached me a lot on, which is, I love you. I think you're beautiful. Whatever the compliments are. And, this is in alignment with where I'm at and doesn't have to say anything else because you don't need to add on because it doesn't serve anything. And I release you. And I wish you all the best in your journey. It's going to be beautiful. I can see that for you.
Yeah. And I think the final thing we can say here is that, and I want to see what you think about this. I think we've talked about this before, but I have this belief that I think helps me be this way more often. And the belief is essentially this. And I know people will push back on this, and you might as well. But to me, it's like this. I do not believe you should have expectations and assumptions for other people ever, ever, ever. Hard and fast rule. And I know a lot of people go, how is that possible with agreements? But I simply go like this. I go, the expectation and assumption is for myself. So if you show up a particular way, I expect and assume and know based on my boundaries and standards, I will respond a particular way. But I don't expect you or assume you'll do it. In other words, I put all of that responsibility on me. And that helps me. It helps me be kind. It helps me be understanding. But also helps me know, to your point, the patterns and stuff that come up where I'm like, I don't tolerate particular energies. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm just going to be like, I don't tolerate that. That's not something that I have with friends. That's not something that I will have in my life. And that's because I put the expectations and assumptions on me that if I encounter it, I just don't involve myself in it.
Yeah, I mean, releasing expectations is a big topic and it's something I've learned a lot about and I'm still working on. And I think that is the correct approach where we go, okay, this is what I expect of myself. This is how I expect to show up. This is what I have control of. This is how I'm going to act. This is who I'm going to be in this scenario. You do you. Like, I love you. You do you. And we're not going to engage in this way anymore. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the way that you're doing things. It's not my place to judge or criticize, but this just isn't in alignment with where I want to be. And that's a really interesting thing to talk about and look at when you're in a relationship, especially a partnership. What are the expectations that you have with your partner what is within your own control and your own experience and what you allow space for versus what you don't have expectations of, or how you desire for that energy to align with your own.
Yeah. And I actually think we can end here, but I do think one podcast you and I definitely need to do, because I do think you're a master at it, and that's communication. I don't think we've done that yet. Like, we really need to unpack communication in a way that I think people can understand, because I do think you're someone who's very good at that. And I'm thinking about in the last year or two,
Yeah.
you've had many people in your life, really difficult things that you've had to communicate with, and it has not been easy, but you've been steady and solid and repeating. And I know you're not always perfect, but I think that's an interesting thing that I think people should learn from you, because I do think it takes incredible patience sometimes when you're dealing with people who just seem not to get it, but are going to be in your life.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say about that is it's just if you have positive intentions and ultimately have a compassionate and empathetic heart and a caring place for other people, which I think I would argue that inherently we all really do deep down. If we can have access to that within ourselves and in other people, then we can show up honestly, authentically, share whatever it is we're talking about here's what issue I'm facing. I am afraid that you're going to feel this way. I am not sure how I feel about it ending up this way, but I just want to put it all on the table so you can fully see the scope of what it is that I'm dealing with, and I want to hear about what your full scope of scenario is so that we can come together and really understand one another and try to figure out how to move forward in this scenario, whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's really hard to do that when there's different wants and desires, and that can always be tough.
This is where expectations comes into play. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High five.
Good job. I like that.